HKMP 正式成立嘅記者會，我係協會其中一位董事王俊彥。我哋目前身處喺全國新聞記者工會英國喺倫敦嘅總部，同時咧係有網上嘅參與，嚟自咧係世界不同國家，非常歡迎各位同埋各個傳媒代表咧係收看出席嘅。亦都榮幸邀請到全國新聞記者工會英國、國際記者聯會同埋無國界記者代表出席。喺網上參與者留意，由於私隱原因同埋稍後會播放一出紀錄片，基於保護知識產權，懇請各位咧係切勿錄影今次活動，多謝會合作。Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to join the official launch of the Association of Overseas Hong Kong Media Professionals (CIC). I'm Chris Wong, one of the directors of AOHKMP. We are here in London at the headquarters of the National Union of Journalists. Also, we have remote attendants from different countries. Here we are very delighted to have your attendance to make this our launch, and we are honoured to have representatives from the National Union of Journalists, the International Federation of Journalists, and Reporters Without Borders to address this meeting. Please be reminded, due to privacy reasons and to protect the copyright of the documentary, which will be showing, we have invited the online participants not to record this event. Thank you for your cooperation. 海外香港傳媒專業人員協會由而家已經移嚟香港以外嘅媒體專業人士組成。目前有5個董事，現場咧有韋安仕先生、顏寶剛先生同埋本人。由於練乙錚先生以及吳呂南先生係有業務在身，未能夠親身出席。全協係一個專業機構，成立嘅宗旨咧係努力培養同埋鼓勵會員喺工作當中堅守最高專業標準，喺任何受到威嚇或者侵犯嘅地方守護真相，捍衛新聞自由。全協亦都會透過培訓同埋交流活動，幫助會員拓展同埋恢復佢哋嘅傳媒專業，亦都會同國際記者組織聯繫，共同監察發生喺香港同中國種種侵害傳媒工作者權益、侵犯新聞自由嘅狀況。AOHKMP is an association of media professionals who have worked in Hong Kong and have been associated with Hong Kong media and are now located overseas. 5 directors of us are Steve Wise, Joseph Wang, Stephen Lee, Joseph Lee, and me. As a professional body, we defend the freedom of press wherever it is being threatened or violated, and help our members to develop media careers by providing training and organizing mutual help. We strive to foster and encourage our members to apply the highest professional standards in their work. At the same time, we should assist former Hong Kong media professionals to rebuild their lives and find work opportunities to resume their media careers in their current locations. AOHKMP shall also liaise with international journalists organizations to monitor media violations and attacks on freedoms in Hong Kong and China as well. May I invite Steve Wise, Director of AOHKMP, to give the opening speech in English, and Joseph Lam, Director of AOHKMP and Cantonese. First, please, Mr. Wise.
Thank you, Chris. Can I just echo what Chris says? We're really pleased to have the NUJ here, the IFJ here, and the RSM. And we look forward to working with them in the future very closely. It's easy to work with organisations like this because we share a common aim of promoting the freedom of the press, defending journalists, and of course of highlighting abuses of freedom of expression. We are here, I think, in a kind of bittersweet mood. In other words, nobody wanted to form an association of overseas Hong Kong media professionals. We formed it because the situation in Hong Kong is so extremely bad that so many people who are in the trade no longer are able to practice in Hong Kong, have been arrested, thrown out of their jobs, or if they're in jobs, are living on an absolute tightrope. So we got to a stage where we moved from being one of the freest media in the world, according to the rankings from RSF, which are published every year, to being one of the worst. There's practically nowhere else in the world, there is nowhere else in the world where this decline in media freedom has been so extreme. And I'm sure Azzura will talk about that. But you know, we're here in a free society where we don't have to look over our shoulders every time we say anything. Yet, even in Britain, we see the thuggish behaviour of the Chinese Communist Party manifest on the streets of Manchester and elsewhere, incidentally. The idea that these people who call themselves diplomats can go around in a free society beating people up, it's not unacceptable, it's deplorable. And I just speak personally here, I very much hope those so-called diplomats are expelled. But joining us today are other people from the Hong Kong media in Taiwan, in the US, in Canada, Australia, France, Holland, and a number of other places. And we hope that we can use this network to pursue the objectives of freedom of expression. We meet, this wasn't our design, but we meet at a very sensitive period. Our colleagues from Stan News went on trial today for subversion. Jimmy Lai will be on trial, I think it's confirmed for tomorrow, and other colleagues from Next Media are going on trial for various offences which will carry inevitably very long prison sentences. We cannot forget our colleagues who are still in Hong Kong. We're not going to do that. So this is our priority at the moment, is to make sure the world is fully aware of the weaponisation of law in Hong Kong, and to make sure that our colleagues in Hong Kong's bravery is acknowledged. We won't forget that. You know, as well as the, if you like, the political side of this, we have other responsibilities as journalists to look after ourselves. We don't expect anybody else to do that. So a prime objective of this association will be mutual assistance. We want to help particularly new arrivals and younger members of the trade who are here to establish themselves and to settle into their new homes. Inevitably, there's more people in Britain than in any other country because of the BNO scheme. But you know, we're very much aware that there is big communities of Hong Kong journalists now in Taiwan, in Canada, United States and America, and Canada. So I hope we can do something in that respect. But I think, you know, the thing that will always lie behind their activities is Hong Kong Jintai. You know, we will pursue the Hong Kong spirit. We will not give up. Thank you very much.
大家好，我係顏寶剛啦，咁就係呢個海外香港傳媒人員專業協會嘅嗰其中嘅董事啦。咁就歡迎大家今日嚟到呢個會場啦。咁希望我哋大家即係可以共同係捍衛香港嘅新聞自由。咁今日係12月31號啦。咁除咗萬聖節，大家都有留意喺香港，其實今日就正係立場新聞兩位前總編輯同埋間公司本身咧係面對住呢個煽動罪嘅呢個開審啦。咁其中一位總編輯鍾偉權都係我自己過去認識嘅。我哋喺20幾年前已經開始出去跑新聞，就成日都會見到。咁我喺2021年離開咗有線新聞之後，亦都幫過立場新聞做嗰啲專題嘅採訪啊嗰啲。咁見到佢兩位今日咁樣面對住一個咁樣嘅審訊咧，係的確好令人痛心，都好令人即係覺得難受。咁嚟緊我哋見到其實喺香港嘅好多傳媒機構，除咗立場，跟住嚟緊我哋會有壹傳媒嘅審訊啦。 咁除咗係老闆黎智英之外，咁好多係新聞工作者，包括編輯啦、總編啦、採註啦，都會面對唔同嘅審訊。咁嗰個壓力係相當之大，亦都係令人覺得香港嘅新聞資訊自由係受到好大嘅限制。咁呢個其實都正正凸顯咗我哋需要喺英國成立傳協，我哋簡稱傳協呢個機構。咁我哋希望即係離開咗香港嘅傳媒人，唔單單係記者啦、編輯啦，甚至係同多位嘅新聞工作者以及係其他嘅傳媒嘅同業啦，大家都可以即係團結一齊。咁我哋繼續關注住香港發生嘅傳媒唔同嘅壓迫嘅情況。希望我哋繼續堅守住資訊自由、新聞自由嘅重點。咁我自己咧過去都係處理財經新聞為主嘅。咁其實我成日都強調就係一個國際金融中心啦，我哋好需要嘅其實係一個資訊同埋言論自由嘅重要性。當你諗下一個分析員，譬如喺20大期間，佢都唔可以寫任何關於經濟分析嘅文章。佢哋唔能夠發表一啲對經濟獨立嘅睇法，其實呢個金融中心已經係受到損害。咁呢個正正係凸顯咗即係呢個資訊同言論自由嗰個重要性。咁我哋離開咗香港呢個地方，咁暫時係安全嘅。咁但係我哋都要關心就係留喺香港嘅好多新聞同業，佢哋其實好努力，亦都喺紅線處處之下，我覺得。佢哋仍然好努力為香港嘅新聞資訊自由咧係努力工作。我哋作為海外嘅之前嘅傳媒人士啦，無論而家係仍然在職或者係已經離開咗呢個崗位，但我哋都希望盡量去關注佢哋，亦都希望提供支持到俾佢哋。因為實在上而家喺香港做呢個採訪新聞嘅自由嘅工作，實在係好困難。大家見到好多傳媒機構有自我審查。就算係編輯本身，亦都要成日擔心到底有呢條新聞會唔會係觸犯咗一啲唔同嘅條例啊，影響到自己甚至係公司嗰個地位啊咁樣。咁所以我哋成立咗傳協啦，咁就希望係團結到我哋呢批海外嘅傳媒人啦，咁就繼續關注住香港嘅新聞資訊。咁我哋都有其他工作嘅目標啦，包括為一啲嚟到海外嘅傳媒人士啦，我哋希望可以盡量提供唔同支援啦。咁我哋都好高興，我哋可以同其他3個主要嘅新聞工作者嘅組織，包括 AJ 啦、FJ 啦同埋無國界記者咧，我哋取得一個即係合作嘅關係。咁我哋而家淨係招收緊會員，我都知道好多朋友都問過我，好擔心就係我加入咗呢個會之後，會唔會我哋嘅資訊會被某啲政權或者係一啲好強力嘅機構知道咗我哋嘅名單咧？咁呢個私隱問題我哋係關注嘅。咁我哋都其實已經聯絡咗一個喺全世界各地都保障緊呢啲新聞機構嘅一個 NGO 啦。咁佢哋都係為我哋幫我哋做呢個私隱嘅保障。咁但係因為佢本身唔想係太公開自己嘅身份啦，咁算我就唔能夠交代佢哋嗰個背景。咁但係請放心，佢哋係為好多新聞機構、新聞工作組織咧係做呢個私隱嘅保障。咁呢方面我哋都有信心咧，可以保障到大家嘅私隱。咁我哋講咁多先。
多謝顏寶剛先生。跟住落嚟咧，我哋會有請全國新聞記者工會英國主席Vicary、無國界記者代表Azzura同埋國際記者聯會代表Jim 幫忙支持嘅。We are now invite Pierre Vicary, President of the National Union of Journalists, Azzura UK Campaigns Officer of Reporters Without Borders, and Jim Boumelha, representative for the International Federation of Journalists, to give keynote speeches. May I first invite Mr. Vicary.
Hi, welcome to the headquarters of the National Union of Journalists. You're all very welcome. We represent thousands of journalists, both in the UK and in Ireland. When Ireland separated many years ago, they wanted to stay with us, so we are in fact the union of Great Britain and Ireland. It's just a historical thing, and we're very proud of that. We have lots and lots of journalists throughout the industry. I work at the BBC World Service. I'm an editor in the World Service English department. We do basic news. And you might be interested to know, some of you may already know, that we have a Chinese service at the BBC World Service, and we have at least 30 or 40 Chinese members. Over the last few years, what has been happening, the idea may be okay, but it depends on the politics. The BBC bosses had an idea that they wanted the BBC to get closer to its audiences. That was the argument. So they would move people from England to the countries where the languages were spoken. That's fine in a democracy. We had a ridiculous case about 15 years ago where the BBC said they wanted to move the Thai service to Bangkok, and the reason given was because Thailand was a fully fledged democracy. 2 weeks after they announced the move, there was a coup. And a bit similar has happened with Hong Kong. They wanted to move, and they did move, 10 or 15 journalists to Hong Kong, set up a big operation there, and lo and behold, you all know what the consequences have been. So while it's, as your colleague said, it's not ideal that you're here, many of you may wish to be in Hong Kong, I would like to invite all of you on English contracts to consider joining this union, because you can. If you're on a local contract, i.e. a non-English contract, then this is the man to talk to, through the IFJ. We can help, but we can't do it directly because we're only allowed in law to help people with English contracts. But through the IFJ, we can still help you. And many of the things that you want to do anyway, we are doing. We fight for freedom. We have a code of conduct. We discipline people who do unacceptable things in journalism. So I think your values, the ones that I've heard being described this today, are the same values we have had since we were founded. So I think we could work very well together should any or all of you decide that that's a good thing to do. And I think that's really all I want to say now. If there are questions, maybe not now because the meeting has got its own rhythm, but I'd be more than happy to answer any questions any of you have. Ask for my details and I will answer them. So, yeah, no problem.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Vicary. And now we have Mr. Boumelha, please.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, and thank you for inviting me. Let me first pass on the greeting of the International Federation of Journalists, which has some 160 unions worldwide, including your association in Hong Kong. So it's quite possible those people who are members of the association will be member of the IFJ. I am Jim Boumelha, the former president and currently still member of the board, the leadership of the IFJ. And the association has been our member for several decades, and we have been responsible for the welfare of its members many years before the handover in 1997 and since. Now we have indeed followed how the fate of journalists evolved over the years from that day when Chinese President Yang Zemin promised at the ceremony, and I quote him, 50 years of liberties not available on the mainland, including press freedom. And last July, 25 years on since the handover, Xi Jinping, Chinese current president, traveled to Hong Kong to mark the anniversary, and the media coverage itself and the broader anniversary celebrations were tightly restricted. Many outlets, including the South China Morning Post, Reuters, CNN, were denied accreditation on a very vague security ground. And one of the ceremonies, as I'm sure you know, that took place was the inauguration of John Lee as a chief executive. Somebody knows for his prior role as security official, where he oversaw the arrest of thousands of pro-democracy protesters and the setting up of the draconian national security law. So over these years, we saw how promises made 25 years ago were broken, and press freedom in Hong Kong was a home of vibrant, independent journalism, as our colleague Stephen said, had declined to become a mere shadow of what it used to be. We've seen how local journalists have been charged under this new law, and even much older one, such as the British-era sedition statute, which was used by authorities to shutter Apple Day, raid its newsroom, and arrest its editorial staff. And Jimmy Lay's father was given a 13-month sentence, and as we've heard, he will be coming in front of the court again. Weeks later, Stab News was also raided, its assets frozen, and some of its journalists arrested. Soon it was the turn of Citizen News to be shut down. Now, amid further arrest, and let's not forget Alan Howe of Star News, who was also arrested last April, and closures, we have no doubt that there has been a sea change in the media landscape in Hong Kong. The new landscape is a regime of fear, where we now see journalists even leaving their homes and fleeing abroad. And when Apple Day closed, we heard that it shelved past commentaries and asked most of its directors to resign. Our office in Sydney tells all the time about the increasing number of writers for its China Press Freedom Report asking to hide or withdraw their bylines to avoid unwanted attention. And we know that many journalists post their news independently in social media, using very complex strategies to stay afloat and see their reporting through. Even international outlets are under the cosh, and there are rumors that some may even relocate to neighboring countries. We're also worried to hear that our affiliate, the association, had an extraordinary meeting to discuss whether to cocoon or to shut down, and thankfully it was decided to continue representing journalists, and this decision has had a huge echo among the global community of journalists. We know it is a brave decision at a time when self-censorship has become the norm, and journalists have to keep their profile low, and we also know that most do everything they can to outsmart the authorities. Now the future seems bleak, and I must say something about the recent development this time outside Hong Kong, and it has long been clear that being repression does not end at China's border. We all know of its attempt to restrict political expression overseas, even here in the UK, after this incident a few days ago in Manchester outside the Chinese consulate. This is something that I'm sure the NUJ will follow up and make representation to the UK government and also to Chinese authority through its group of MPs in Parliament. And we are all shocked to learn about the activities of service centres all over Europe, which were recently exposed as being used to track Chinese citizens, including dissidents, and pressurize them to return back to China. On this, the IFJ will alert all its affiliates worldwide to be vigilant and assert forcefully the political freedom of colleagues wherever they are. We won't accept that human rights concerns are traded away for economic advantage, as it happened in some cases in the past. But today, and I will finish on this, let's celebrate this important initiative, and I thank all the people who put in a big effort for this to happen, which is the launch of AUHKMP. Today is an important day for the Hong Kong journalists and those that continue to fight day in, day out. I read somewhere a great quote, and I'll read it, written in St. News, describing this fight. It says, "While we still can, we tell our stories of Hong Kong, resisting the forgetfulness, remembering Hong Kong's resilience, and preserving our adamantine spirit of freedom." This is the spirit that the IFJ affiliate all over the world applaud and have pledged to give their support to, and please be no doubt that we will do our utmost to continue to stand shoulder to shoulder with you at every stage of this fight. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And following is Ms. Walls, please. Thanks.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here today on behalf of Reporters Without Borders, known internationally as Reporters Sans Frontières, for the launch of the Overseas Hong Kong Journalist Media Association here in London. I don't need to tell many of you here today about the press freedom situation in Hong Kong, because many of you have lived it. You've worked for the associations and the news organisations that have shut down, and you have experienced the ramifications more than I will have ever. But if you'll allow me, I'd like to talk a little bit about why the work we're doing to support press freedom is so important. This year, Hong Kong experienced one of the biggest declines globally in RSS 2022 World Press Freedom Index, falling from the ranking of 80th to 148 out of 180 countries. But over the 20 years that RSF has been recording the global state of press freedom, Hong Kong's journey is one of particular interest. Beginning its rankings at 18th, the fall to 148 is one of significant interest and shows how much has changed in just 20 years. Once a beacon of hope, the situation is now particularly dire. Of all of the concerns regarding press freedom, there is one case that we hold of particular importance, which many of my colleagues on this panel have already raised today, and that is the case of Jimmy Lai. Jimmy Lai has spent the past 25 years working to uphold the values of freedom of speech and press through founding his independent media outlet, Apple Daily. Just last week, Lai was found guilty of fraud charges. This is in addition to a 20-month sentence he received for contributing to 4 unauthorised pro-democracy protests in 2019 and 2020. But Lai also faces charges under the national security law, which will be tried in December. In the past 2 years alone, the Chinese regime has used the national security law as a pretext to prosecute at least 23 press freedom defenders. As we speak, there are a total of 13 journalists and press freedom defenders jailed in Hong Kong, including 6 Apple Daily senior staff, 2 media founders, 2 Stan News former editor-in-chiefs, 2 press freedom defenders, and radio hosts. The other remain under conditions of bail or are appealing their cases. Alongside Apple Daily, the Hong Kong government has also forced the shutdown of Stan News, a few of the colleagues have mentioned here today, while the climate of fear confronting the Hong Kong journalists led to at least 5 other smaller media outlets seizing their operations, including Citizen News, DB Channel, Mad Dog Daily, Local Press, and Factwire. This has all severely shrunken the climate for media pluralism in Hong Kong and contributed to the broad deterioration of press freedom. With the closure of media outlets, the imprisonment of journalists, it shows just how far the Hong Kong government will go to silence critical voices. But as I said, these are details that many of you here today already know. You may have reported on these stories or even worked with these outlets. So as you gather here today for your official launch event, I was torn as what my message to you should be. You know about the deterioration of press freedom in Hong Kong, so what should we say? Instead, I wanted to come with a really simple message. And it's simply just to say thank you. Thank you for reporting on these stories, for informing the world of what's happening here in Hong Kong, for amplifying the stories of those who are fighting for change. Your voice, your words, they're needed now more than ever. I hope that your association will continue to fight for change in Hong Kong, continue to fight for media freedom, media pluralism, and the amplification of voices. And I hope more than anything that one day Hong Kong will return to a higher place on our World Press Freedom ranking. We're with you in this fight, and I'm very pleased to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank our 3 honourable guests addresses very much. 我哋接住就係提問環節啦。咁現場咧同埋網上參與嘅人士咧都歡迎提問嘅。咁你就會先解答現場嘅提問先，咁之後咧就再回應網上嘅提問。咁網上參加者咧，如果有問題可以直接提出嘅，咁或者係預先喺個 check box 嗰度咧就係打出啲問題，咁我哋就會再代為發問啦。咁稍後咧董事 Steve Wise 咧係會解答英文提問，同埋顏寶剛先生咧就會回應中文嘅提問嘅。Now we are having Q&A section. We welcome those participants at the floor and online to question, and we will take the on-site questions first. For the journalists and remote attendants, please raise your questions directly, or you may enter your questions in the chat box, then we will read it out. With the fines, we take English questions, And listing on OI, we take the Cantonese. 如果現場有題目可以請答。
Congratulations for setting up the association. So my question is quite simple. What will be the plan of the association in the upcoming 1 or 2 years?
Well, thank you for that. We have some very specific plans, one of which we will be doing in collaboration with the IFJ, who have granted us some funds to produce a report on how many Hong Kong journalists there are around the world and what they're doing. This is information that nobody has at the moment. As far as campaign is concerned, unfortunately, events dictate themselves, we don't dictate them. But you know, this is a crucial period for people in Hong Kong who are on trial, as everybody here knows. So I fully anticipate we will be highlighting these cases and campaigning on that. And then, you know, there's a range of work that we can start doing with helping our fellow journalists overseas, directing them to employment opportunities, to study opportunities. We're also envisaging doing some training courses, that sort of thing. So it will be a mixture of all of those things.
請問現場有冇其他問題？
我想問翻中文，跟住好多香港嘅以前嘅媒體人，或者尤其是英國啦，咁我發現好多都係好難對大家組織嘅，因為大家仍然好害怕嗰個國安法，甚至乎好多人都驚唔可以再翻香港，或者係影響到喺香港嘅朋友或親人諸如此類。你點樣去說服呢班人唔可以即係參加呢個組織啊？
多謝個問題先。咁呢個的確係一個好真實，亦都係好多朋友同我直接反映佢哋對加入傳協嘅一個憂慮，就係到底自己嘅身份會唔會被披露咧？好多朋友佢哋本身亦都有家人啊，好多朋友都可能仲喺香港呢個地方。咁會唔會變咗加入咗傳協之後會變成咗黑名單，甚至入境嘅時候會有危險咧？咁呢個我哋會盡力保證嘅，因為我哋頭先我咁講啦，因為其實我明白嗰個私隱問題咧係好多傳媒朋友好關心，亦都好關注。咁所以我哋係的確聯絡咗一個好喺業界入邊好有廣泛聯繫嘅一個 NGO 咧，幫我哋做呢個數據同埋呢個網頁上嘅保障。咁而佢哋所有入嚟嘅會員嘅申請咧，都會係經過我哋董事會兩個同事嘅同意咧，先至會正式加入。而佢哋本身係唔會有其他嘅可以接觸到嘅 access 到嘅資訊嘅數據庫。咁我相信即係喺呢個 NGO 幫我哋保障之下咧，其實大家入嚟嘅資訊咧係唔會對外披露。咁呢個亦都係保障咗大家喺第日如果真係有機會翻去需要翻去香港嘅時候咧，即係呢個資訊係唔會成為咗自己一個障礙。咁呢個我明白係好多朋友都好關心，咁所以我頭先發言嘅時候已經講咗一次，亦都希望即係過去唔同新聞協會嘅一啲 track record 咧，都俾到大家信心咧，就係呢個 NGO 係可以保障到我哋嗰個資訊嗰個保密性。
我都補充點就係sorry，其實就係因為我哋都知道離開咗香港，然之後想做呢個新聞工作嘅人咧，其實可能有啲窒礙啦。可能頭先發問嘅時候提到就係可能經嗰個國安法嘅問題等等，或者基於屋企香港屋企人等等。咁但係我哋見到就係喺如果出咗佢都唔能夠繼續做我哋嘅傳媒工作嘅話，係一個非常之可惜嘅一個舉動。 咁所以傳媒協會裏面就係有個幫助啦，就係喺媒體新聞上面啦，或者就喺尋找工作機會上面都係能夠即係希望可以幫助大家，亦都趁住呢一個可以重新 gather 嘅一個機會，去幫助離開香港嘅傳媒工作者。
Thank you. Can I first of all congratulate you on this initiative? As many, if not all, of you on the panel will be aware, earlier this year, Hong Kong Watch produced a report on press freedom. Steve contributed to it, and Azzura and Steve spoke at the launch of it. So I'm really excited to see this development. My question for you is, obviously your focus is very rightly on press freedom in Hong Kong and on the situation of Hong Kong media professionals outside Hong Kong. But I just wonder, press freedom around the world and journalists around the world seem to be at unprecedented danger today. And I just wonder if you have any plans to collaborate with exiled media professionals from other places of repression, conflict, persecution, and if so, what they are.
Thank you, Ben. You're quite right. I mean, the one thing that we know about suppression of freedom of expression is it's neither novel nor it's original. Every repressive regime on the face of the planet makes it its business to try and shut down free media. So we all face similar problems. So the question is, can we, as the Hong Kong end of this problem, with the new arrivals on this block, we never expected to be on the block which was joined with, those fine people in Pyongyang and Russia and what have you. So I think the answer to your question is, we certainly will be working, particularly with organisations like Reporters Without Borders and the IFJ, which has as its mandate to defend press freedom internationally. But one thing that I think we learned from the Hong Kong protests, which always struck me as being very interesting, was the quick way that although the protests were focused on the situation in Hong Kong, you saw at some protests Catalan flags when people in Catalonia were being oppressed. You saw in Hong Kong the way that people adopted the magnificent example of the Baltic states in linking arms to highlight the solidarity of the people and resistance to oppression. So I fully expect that we will work, I hope we will, work with other journalist associations and individuals in furthering those aims. I don't know if Jim wants to.
Thank you very much. I thought that you were addressing, in particular, the newly launched organisation, but of course there is a sort of overlap because not all, but certainly kind of quite a big number of journalists in Hong Kong are members of the association, which itself is a member of the International Federation of Journalists. I think it came late when I mentioned greetings from the IFJ, which has over 160 organizations throughout the world. And only last June, it held its most recent Congress. Unfortunately, our colleagues from Hong Kong couldn't be at the Congress for good reason, but certainly journalist organizations from all over the world over there, as well as organizations from the region. And those organizations are going to be crucial in terms of hosting and nurturing and helping some of the people that the situation in Hong Kong has become undoubtedly for them. I think Steve mentioned, Taiwan, which is next door. We've got union in Taiwan, and it's just a matter of, working hand in hand with the newly formed association to see what are the needs and how we could harness, that help. Canada has been another country. That is something that we can work on very immediately. We've got 3 unions in Canada, and they just in terms of hosting, in terms of linking up to what's happening elsewhere, and the fight, against this decline of press freedom. The door is open. Through the association, all that work has been done and is being coordinated by our office in Sydney that will be coordinating some of the academic work that is needed, because it's practical work, that will map out where those journalists are and other things as well.
Any questions on this?
係咁我想請教一下咧，有冇估計過有幾多香港人喺海外做緊傳媒或者記者咧？咁呢個第一個問題啦。第二個問題就係、即係其實呢個協會個定位係俾啲依家做緊記者嘅海外香港人啦，定係包埋啲前記者，即係一啲香港嘅前傳媒人加入嘅咧？唔該。
我回答呢個問題啦。其實我哋協會本身咧就係歡迎現在喺行業嘅傳媒工作者啦，亦都歡迎曾經喺行業嘅傳媒工作者咧加入我哋。咁最重要嘅一個信念就係我哋要捍衛新聞自由，我哋希望可以關注喺香港受壓迫嘅新聞行業，同埋支持而家喺香港做緊傳媒工作嘅人。咁所以我哋嘅會員咧係可以包括係現有啦，或者係曾經咧係喺傳媒入邊工作過嘅朋友啦。咁就算係一啲唔係傳媒工作嘅朋友，或者係仍然喺香港或者喺海外支持呢個新聞自由嘅呢個信念啦，其實我哋都歡迎我哋一個係新聞之友傳統之友嘅一個會員制。咁佢哋咧亦都會定期係接收到我哋嘅一啲信息啦，同埋我哋舉辦活動咧都會邀請佢哋參與。咁所以即係呢個係總之我哋嗰個信念就係即係支持新聞自由嘅朋友咧，我哋都希望佢哋可以加入。第一個問題係
有冇估計過有幾多香港人喺海外做緊傳媒？
唔好意思，呢個數字其實當然因為大家都喺雖然大家身邊好多朋友都會知道，即係自己好多同業啊或者自己公司嘅人都已經離開咗香港，咁但係個數據就好難去暫時去統計。咁所以我哋其中成立咗呢個傳媒之後，其中有一個 project 就係希望喺一啲資助之下咧，我哋係可以做一個統計咧，就係喺全世界，包括喺英國啦、加拿大啦、澳洲啦，甚至係其他地方、美國啦。咁到底有幾多傳媒工作者咧係離開咗？咁我哋都希望有一個大約嘅統計咧，係知道呢個數字有幾多。雖然大家身邊都好多朋友都會知道自己身邊好多朋友係傳媒嘅人都已經離開咗香港。咁我哋希望透過呢個 project 咧係可以做到一個統計，亦都方便到我哋去接觸更多嘅即係支持新聞自由嘅朋友。
There is a question online asked by James. The question is, there are many journalists who have left Hong Kong and are unable to find jobs as journalists in their new homes. Can they join the association? And will they be able to get some kind of professional accreditation even if they are not working as full-time journalists?
So, that unfortunately is a question that is of great concern to many people who've arrived in England. Very difficult, we have to be realistic, for people who have held down often quite senior and responsible journalism jobs in Hong Kong to find that sort of work overseas. One thing that we will certainly do is act as a clearinghouse. If we hear of any work coming up, we'll be putting that information on our website. We will definitely be engaged in directing people towards training opportunities, and as well as scholarships. There is a new scholarship that's just been announced. I haven't discussed this with colleagues, but we'll be publicising that on our website soon. But more generally, it is the second part of James's question is a bit more complex. We are in no position to accredit journalists, so if people are not actively working as journalists, it's very hard for us to accredit them. But we can most certainly invite people who've been involved in the Hong Kong media and not currently working in media to join the association not least because so many of those people wish to return to journalism, or even on a full or a part-time basis. And secondly, because, we value the experience that people have. There's some very experienced Hong Kong journalists now living overseas. We want to tap into that wealth of knowledge and experience and use that to good purpose. But perhaps, Pierre, you could explain the situation here.
Yeah, I mean, this is not the first time that this situation has arisen. For example, within the last 12 months, when the Taliban took over in Afghanistan, the BBC, just my own area, had about 100 people in the BBC bureau in Kabul and other regional centres. And we spent a lot of energy and a lot of time and money getting many of those people to the United Kingdom. Now, they joined the NUJ. Clearly, they weren't earning, and they were able to join initially without paying any fees because they didn't have any money. But we then worked really hard to get the BBC to give them jobs in the UK with the BBC and other places, and the IFJ was very active as well, both in terms of actually physically getting people out of Afghanistan and then helping them to resettle and to resume their work as journalists once that process had moved. So I certainly don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of the way you run your association, but any of you working journalists here who are intending to stay here and remain as journalists, you can certainly use us as a conduit for that to happen, and you can count on our full support. Now, he's a personal friend of mine, the head of the BBC Chinese service, so there are ways in which I can put you in touch with him and others. There are other Chinese outlets outside China where we are able to be helpful. I'm not touting for business here. I am merely trying to show you the solidarity that you would expect from a journalist union that is part of the International Federation. So, as I said right at the beginning, maybe not now because this is not the point of the exercise, but if anybody has questions or wants further information, take my details and contact me on another occasion, but soon.
Thanks very much. I think you covered that subject very well. Just in terms of outside the UK and throughout the world, I don't know how many people in this room are a member of the association. But by being a member of the association, you are entitled to the International Press Card. And usually the International Press Card is crucial, not in every country, but in many countries for people to apply for accreditation. There are many countries where you don't need any accreditation, you can work as a journalist, but others where the rules and the law require you to go and register and that kind of thing. This is absolutely crucial, and it's it is done through the local association. It can be done. If you are here in the UK and you are a member of either the association, you could still do it through them, or you can do it through the NUJ should you choose to join the NUJ.
It was more of a comment really than a question, just to follow up on that. And those of us who write a lot about China and about Hong Kong, but for one reason or another have not been able to go there for a while, I mean, the people that are coming to the UK have invaluable experience, invaluable contacts, invaluable knowledge about what's going on there, which is far more current than certainly I have. And I think there's a lot of us who work, whether it's in writing books or articles about China and Hong Kong, would very much value being in touch with people that have this more recent expertise with a view to collaborating, perhaps working together, and maybe, a halfway house to help people get back on that journalistic platform or ladder in the UK. And I think perhaps that's one thing that the association may be able to do, to be able to do that kind of network and put those of us who are writing regularly about the situation in Hong Kong and China in touch with people that really have this more current expertise. Okay.
請問現場有冇問題？
我想請教下咧，譬如以前喺香港做開中文媒體嘅一啲記者咧，如果想喺翻呢一度，即係可能投身翻本地一啲嘅媒體嘅 BBC 啊、聽聞嗰啲咧，譬如即係可能因為我身邊都有一啲嘅前行家，佢哋都係即係好覺得自己嘅英文唔好啊，佢個 language 即係懼怕，即係唔敢做翻啲 local 嘅 media 嚟講，會唔會可能有一啲即係培訓上面或者一啲嘅課程上面係依家首先嘅反應係即係幫到有啲即係想做翻即係以前從事記者嘅行家可以即係投身翻係呢一度嘅一個 local 嘅行業咧？唔該。
The question is, will our association provide any course or language program can help those to Hong Kong reporters or journalists to better equip themselves and let them to rebuild their journalist business in UK? 我簡單講一句，睇下Steve 你哋有冇suggestion？我哋協會係的確係希望可以同到特別幾個組織。大家有一個聯繫咧，係希望可以做到一啲培訓上嘅一啲訓練咧，係俾我哋嘅會員，特別係頭先你提到，因為其實香港記者喺香港嘅受訓咧，其實我哋係好多關於採訪手法啊，或者係啲唔同嘅本地嘅渠道啊、外地嘅渠道，我哋都好熟悉嘅。咁但係喺個言語上、個文字上，的確我哋係需要一啲更加好嘅培訓啦，係更加好以驅動我哋自己。咁呢個我哋會繼續去 explore， 亦都希望可以俾到會員係做呢方面嘅培訓嘅。Maybe Steve,
I mean, this is a very good point, and I think it's something I have to say to you. We don't have an answer at the moment. That's the honest answer. But I think we should be doing exactly that. Yes. As you've said, as Joseph says, yeah.
The NUJ has a lot of the NUJ, for example, has a lot of technical training courses in specific things, how to do podcasts, how to do whatever. We also have a lot of union training courses, which can tangentially also be useful for individuals. So there are lots of different ways in which you can get that specialized journalistic skill that you may not have used initially in Hong Kong, because you were, say, working for a newspaper, and the opportunities maybe here might be more in broadcasting or in podcasts. So those steps, there are ways to help you make that transition.
即係可能我哋都知道英國嘅嗰個政治體系都好唔同啦，即係香港。即係行政部同埋呢個行政部門同立法會咁，但係英國其實成個選舉制度以及就係個 parliamentary process 都完全不同。咁呢個我相信香港記者咧，其實嚟到英國或者其實佢自己嘅新嘅 location 都需要去了解當地嘅嗰個體系。咁所以呢個我哋係需要了解，亦都透過培訓係會有呢個了解裏面。咁似乎。現場都冇提問或者online 都冇提問，我哋就 move 去另有個新嘅題目。There was a question asked by Simon. The question is more common. If we look at our screens, is there anything we can offer for the global media profession?
I think the simple answer to that is yes. I mean, the journalist community is an international community. We're very used to working together professionally, not as associations, as individuals. So I think that the most we can do as association is to provide a point of contact After we've done that, it's up to the individuals to get on with the job. But I think, before the association was formed, there wasn't a point of contact. Now there is, and we have as part of our responsibility to do precisely this, to work with our colleagues in whichever countries we are. I mean, I must stress that although we're based in the UK, the majority of journalists are here in the UK because of the B&O scheme. We are hoping that we'll have much more active participation in what is effectively the 3 or 4 main other areas of Hong Kong journalists, which is Taiwan, the United States, Canada and Australia. And we're going to be actively working on that.
Can I just put 3 threads together? You made the very valid point that the people in this room have got knowledge about Hong Kong that people who haven't been there for a long time don't have. So that's clearly one great strength. Let me give you a very quick story about, you've no doubt been following events in Iran and the prison in Tehran where all political prisoners are kept, and the fact that there was a fire there and a lot of people were at risk of dying in that fire. I was working that night and we desperately wanted to know exactly what was going on because the authorities were doing everything they could to deny us access to the information we needed in order to be able to tell that story properly. The BBC Persian service, based here, has many of the same problems that those of you who've come very recently faced in Hong Kong. But through them, we were able to get the mobile phone numbers of people in the jail, and we were able, on occasion, even though the authorities tried desperately to block the internet, to get information which we were then able to use to tell the world what was going on in the prison in Tehran. So just trying to answer the question raised, which is a really good one, don't underestimate how much knowledge you've got, the contacts you've got, the fact that you know Hong Kong so much better than most people outside. I think that is a strength. It's not of itself enough to solve all the issues that have been raised, but it's certainly an important step that I think you should not be reticent in making use of. That would be trying to answer the question. Sorry.
Thank you very much. If there's any questions here or online, then we go on to the sections. First up, thank you very much for all the questions online and on site. 跟住咧，我哋就會去播放最近